Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. This is your April 2020 horoscope for Capricorn Sun, Moon, or Rising. So, starting off here, if we go back to April 3rd, we want to start off here. This is when Venus entered into Gemini. And so, for many of you, this is Venus entering into your sixth house of work, responsibilities, daily routines. And so here we see this time of really doing what you love, doing what brings you joy and happiness into your life as Venus comes in and enters into this sixth house for those of you with Capricorn rising. And so during this time, if you are Capricorn rising, even for those of you with Capricorn Sun or Moon, this is a really great time to relax and do what is comfortable, do what you love in your life with all of this time on your hands now for many of you out there during this time of lockdown. And so this can leave many of you feeling restless. Many of you are very active with that Gemini sitting in your sixth house of work and responsibilities. This is where you tend to put a lot of your energy and mental focus into this area of work with Gemini here in the sixth. And so with Venus here, this is really reminding you to enjoy life, to relax, to have that comfort in your life. And so this is going to be a big theme here for those of you with Capricorn Sun, Moon, or Rising, is it's time for you to learn how to just relax and to take that time to fully love yourself, to bring that joy, that happiness, that peace, that harmony into your life, to settle down. Because with all of this Gemini energy in your sixth house, there's a lot of wanting to do this and doing that. And it is very difficult here. This is very similar to the reading that I did for those of you with Sagittarius. There's a lot of this restless energy here of really wanting to do something during this time. But ultimately, this is asking you to take a step back, especially as we're going to see Venus retrograde here in your sixth house for many of you as well, that this is really going to be a time of needing to kind of just relax and chill out and take this time to review, to look over things, right? And this is very difficult for many of you with Capricorn rising. Some of you with Capricorn Sun or Moon might feel this as well. So let's go ahead and move ahead here. On April 4th, we had this Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, which is leading up to a big Pluto retrograde that we're going to see take place on the 25th. And so with Jupiter and Pluto coming together here, with Saturn out of the conjunction for the first time here, right? This is the first time during this cycle here of this major Capricorn energy that we're seeing Saturn leave and move on ahead into Aquarius, which is a little bit of a sneak peek of what is to come in December when Saturn is officially going to stay and remain in Aquarius. However, we will see Saturn retrograde back into Capricorn. And so when that takes place, we will see this Saturn energy re-enter into here. And so really with Saturn ahead in Aquarius, this is a great time of just relaxing, taking a break, right? For many of you, we're talking about Saturn that was sitting in your first house for a very, very long time now. where it has felt like this weight, this restriction, this limitation put on many of you in your lives, in how you can express, how you can experience the world at this moment. And so, as Saturn pushes ahead into your second house, this is really a moment of relief, as a lot of this pressure and responsibility is taken off of who you are and how you're presenting yourself, and really shifting into this space of your values, your morals, which for many of you, for those of you with Capricorn rising especially, right, we're talking about having these Saturn morals and responsibilities, not only in your self image, in the way that you present yourself, but also in your morals and values, right? Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn and Aquarius. So we have this very strong Saturnian energy here for those of you with Capricorn rising. But as Saturn moves ahead into your second house, this is really starting to make this feel like a restriction, a restraint on your morals, on your values, which are already very specific, very much responsible, a certain way here, with this Saturn energy being the ruler of your second house anyway. Now, with Pluto and Jupiter sitting together here in this conjunction in your first house without Saturn, this is really a feeling of, once again, relief, but this is also a huge transformation that is taking place here, as Jupiter is the main energy here with Saturn out of the picture. Jupiter is here to help expand this huge explosive transformation here in terms of your appearance, in terms of the way that you're presenting yourself to others, the way that you're coming across. And so many of you may want to change your style at this time, may want to change your personality, right? Many people, with this Plutonian energy being amplified and expanded with Jupiter in here, that this is really giving you the ability to transform who you are. And this is an opportunity for you to transform yourself for the better, right? Not just on a superficial level of changing your style or changing the way that you look, but literally taking this time to look deep within, to look in at your fears, to look in at the deepest parts of who you are, and look at the things that actually need changing and restructuring. And this really gives you the ability to change who you are for the best. So, very powerful energy with this Pluto-Jupiter conjunction sitting in your first house. And there is a responsibility to do this with, once again, Saturn here, but also Mars sitting here in your second house, where there's really this ultimate responsibility, while Mars is still here in your second house of Aquarius, to really pay attention to your self-worth, to really pay attention to where your values are, where your morals are, what is the most important to you in your life, right? And this is heavily supported by this transformation that is being encouraged here in your first house. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next major shift here, which happened on April 7th with this full moon in Libra. So for those of you who went ahead and watched my full moon video for this full moon in Libra that we're coming off of, right, the moon is now sitting here in Sag. And so as it's entering into this space of Sagittarius, this is really motivating you to adventure and seek out the deepest parts of yourself, as Sagittarius is sitting back in your 12th house of the subconscious, of unconscious desires, repressed feelings, right? All of these subtle, hidden behind the scenes areas of your life, where it really is encouraging you to look deeper within, right? Which is what this whole process here of Pluto and Jupiter sitting together in your first house is really encouraging, that it's time for you to take a break with all of this mental energy that you have going on in your sixth house of Gemini, to just learn to relax and go deep within, do the inner work. This is a huge time for those of you with Capricorn rising, especially, to really go ahead and do some deep inner work on yourselves. Now, this full moon in Libra, sitting back in your 10th house of career, really this was this moment of finding the balance between your work life and your fun, your enjoyment. And so this really was a time of finding that peace and that harmony with your career, with your work life, with your interaction with the public, and really balance that out between, okay, what's the opposite of the 10th house, the 4th house, of where you can find that comfort, that joy, that peace, that love, that connection. So let's go ahead and move along to this next major transit, which is today, right? We just came into this moment here of Mercury entering into Aries early this morning here, where this is really shifting the way that we think and communicate and learn. And with Mercury finally out of Pisces, right, where Mercury is its weakest in Pisces, as Pisces is dealing with spirituality and with this daydreamy, imaginative, fantasy-driven energy here. Now Mercury is coming into Aries, where things start to make more sense. The information is more upfront. It's coming more clearly to those of you with Capricorn rising. Especially as Aries is ruling over your 4th house, right? So many of you are once again in lockdown, you're in your homes, and there is this strong connection to home here, especially for those of you with Capricorn rising, where you can find a lot of clarity, you can find a lot of information through your family, through your loved ones, through your connection to home. And so really there is once again this call to go within, to find this deeper connection, to go through this ultimate deeper transformation. So there's a lot here that is pulling you inward into yourself to go through this transformation, to go through this change, this experience of understanding your deeper nature, right? So a lot of subconscious work here that needs to be done for many of you. Now Mercury is making a square over to the North Node in Cancer, which is here at 1 degree of Cancer. So it is coming to that critical moment, getting very close to 0 degrees, right, as we are going to see the North Node switch into Gemini in early May here. So the North Node is here at its last degrees of Cancer. It's getting ready to make this shift into Gemini. So this is the last opportunity here to learn these lessons here of the North Node in Cancer, which for those of you with Capricorn rising, and you may feel this as well if you are a Capricorn Sun or Moon, that there is this lesson surrounding your connection with others, your connection with the people around you, whether this is romantic relationships, friendships, relationships with family, your professional life, your public life, is this area here of the 7th house in Cancer, where there is this moment here that is calling you towards this destined and fated interaction with others, right? Which is very much the opposite of your sign, right? Capricorn is much more focused on work, responsibilities, routine. How can I get to the top? How can I be successful? Right? It's about this motivation, this aspiration to be the very best, which takes us away from home and family, takes us away from connection, takes us away from our emotions. And so there is a little bit of this depression or this loneliness that is very much connected here to this sign of Capricorn, as it does pull you away from this connection to your loved ones, to your family, to your home life, right? Which is this shadow side of you, which is your relationship house, your public life here in Cancer. And so there's a major lesson here to leave behind what you already know and feel comfortable with here in this first house of working and striving for the best and starting to form these deeper connections, right? And all throughout April here, there is this huge theme that is of moving away from, once again, all of this Gemini energy in your sixth house of getting work and responsibilities done and coming back home, coming back to this deeper connection. And once again, the moon is now in Sag. So this Mercury is making a trine over to the moon in Sagittarius, which again is creating this connection to yourself on a deeper level. This is time to do some introspection. This is time to go deep within, to do some inner work. So once again, taking this time here to relax, to meditate, to clear your mind, to journal, to come into this inner space where you can go through this transformation, this change within yourself, which is also making this aspect over here, once again, to Pluto and Jupiter conjoined in your first house, as well as Saturn and Mars conjoined in your second house. So a lot of change, a lot of restructuring that needs to take place here within yourself, right? Those first three houses there, very much very personal, and a lot of change that is going on there, even with Neptune sitting in that third house. There's a lot that needs to be understood, but on a deeper spiritual level with Neptune there. So a lot going on here as far as going through this inner change and starting to find this deeper connection, starting to understand things on a much deeper level. This is pulling you within yourself. So let's take a look at this next major shift here, which will take place on April 19th when the sun enters into Taurus. And right away, this sun is making a conjunction with Uranus in Taurus. And so this is sitting here back in your fifth house of passion, of fun, of creativity, of children, of fame, of love, of romance, right? This house of pleasure and fun and activity, where Uranus has been sitting in here for a while, where it has really been calling you to make a lot of radical changes in terms of expressing yourself, in terms of what is fun, of what is exciting. And so this is really pushing you to go outside of your comfort zone and to have more fun in your life. With Taurus sitting here in your fifth house, many of you very much more sedentary, more calm in terms of how you can experience this fun and joy in your life. And Uranus is here to shake things up. Uranus is here to say, let's do something different. Let's change things up to add some more fun into your life. And with the sun coming in here, there's a focus here on what is romantic, what is fun, what is pleasurable, what is exciting, how can you express yourself, what are your creative talents, right? So there's a focus here to do something different, to do something out of the box in terms of your creative skills and talents. And once again, this is making a aspect over to the North Node in Cancer. So once again, there's this calling here to connect more to people, to form these deeper connections, right? And with this aspect, there is a calling here to express yourself more, to put your creative ideas out there, to put your talents out there for others to see. This is also making an aspect over to Jupiter and Pluto conjoined in Capricorn, as well as Saturn in Aquarius. Now this time Mars is further along here in your second house. And so Mars is now off of the conjunction with Saturn. Saturn is here standing alone, where there is still this duty, this responsibility to look at your values, to look at your morals, to look at your possessions, and to see what is of the utmost importance to you. But with Mars here, you may feel a little bit less energy, a little bit less drive here in terms of this main responsibility and focus here that needs to be taken care of. But also here with this conjunction of Pluto and Jupiter, again, this is helping to transform you. This is helping you go through this radical change. And so again, it is taking you through this deep transformation that is dealing with your self-image, that is dealing with how you present yourself, who you are. And Pluto is going to spend a long time here in your first house. So there's a lot of change, a lot of transformation that needs to take place in terms of who you are and how you're presenting yourself to the world. So let's take a look at this next major transit, which will happen on April 22nd when we have a new moon here in Taurus. And this new moon is in a conjunction with Uranus. So this is our first new moon since last year that is here in a conjunction with Uranus. This is our two luminaries lighting up this planet of evolution, of change, of unexpected surprises. And so once again, there's a lot of changes here that need to take place in terms of the way that you express yourself, right? This is asking you to be more original. This is asking you to do something different, to change things up, to mix things up in terms of the way that you are expressing yourself. And so with this new moon here, it is opening up this new opportunity for you to put this new and original idea of how you're going to express yourself, how you're going to come across to others. Because once again, this is making the aspect over to Pluto and Jupiter, which are conjoined in your first house. So this is affecting your image. This is affecting the way that you're coming across to others, as it is in here, making this big explosive change and transformation in terms of your identity, in terms of the way that you are expressing yourself and coming across to others, as well as that aspect over to Saturn in your second house, where really changing up your values, changing up your morals, changing up what you find and hold worth in your life. And once again, this is making the aspect over to the North Node in Cancer. So making the sextile over to the North Node, which is now at 0 degrees of Cancer. So now we're closing in on this last opportunity to learn how to connect with others, to learn how to farm these deeper connections in your life as the North Node is coming to this moment now, as it's at its critical degree, where it will shift back into Gemini. And this is also making a semi-sextile over to Neptune in Pisces. So again, Neptune sitting in your third house of intellect, of communication, of siblings, of short distance travel, right? Where a lot of the information, the facts, and the data that you are trying to access now does not make much sense. This is asking for you to look for more spiritual answers. This is asking for you to think in a more spiritual, more higher perspective versus these facts and data and information here. Right, which is a very normal placement, as this is Pisces here on your third house cusp. So this is very normal for you to think from this higher perspective, right? This is where this mystical side of the sea goat Capricorn comes from. So let's take a look at this next major transit here, which will happen on April 25th when Pluto stations retrograde. So this is our first major retrograde of the year, right? We went through a Mercury retrograde early on, but this is our first time that we're seeing an outer planet station retrograde here in 2020. And this is the big moment of Pluto retrograding in a conjunction with Jupiter. No Saturn. Saturn is ahead in Aquarius. And so this is this big explosive transformation here that is deepening and intensifying as it is going into this retrograde. This is your review period to look over these changes that need to be made in terms of your appearance, in terms of the way that you're presenting yourself, in terms of your perspective on life. Right? So huge changes that are taking place here in your identity, in your appearance. And this is making an aspect over to Neptune in Pisces. So again, encouraging you to think in a different way, to think creatively, to think from a spiritual point of view, to see from a higher perspective, to believe, right? So there's a lot here to say about not relying on so much of the facts and the information and details, but to start to take a look within, to start to understand your intuition and your connection that is your true navigation here during this time. This is also making an aspect over to Mercury, which is conjoined with Lilith in Aries. So sitting in your house of home and family, to your connection, right? So there's a lot to say here about this deeper desire to ultimately connect on a deeper level, to connect to family, to connect to those that you have a deeper emotional connection to. So this is a calling to ultimately look within, to look at how you can communicate and get your thoughts across to those who are closest to you, right? Especially to family. There's this huge calling here to connect to family and to find this deeper connection, to even go into your roots, right? There's a lot here about meditating and taking the time to connect with your ancestors for many of you. And there is this aspect over to Chiron, which is also sitting here in your house of home and family. And so a lot of fears, a lot of insecurities in terms of this connection to family, to home, to your ancestors, right? Forming these deeper, more emotional connections in your life. So let's take a look at this last major shift here, which takes place on April 27th, when Mercury enters into Taurus. So now Mercury is starting to slow down, right? Not in its movement, but in this energy here. It's coming off of this hot, direct, energetic, passionate energy of Aries. And now it's coming into the zone of Taurus, where it's asking you to slow down. It's asking you to look at things more rationally, right? It's asking you to take your time to look at the details. But this is Mercury sitting in your house of creativity, of expression, of fun, of pleasure, right? We talked about this earlier with this new moon that's going to be sitting in this house. But now we have Mercury coming in to the picture here. And Mercury is here to help you express yourself even more, right? This is the planet of communication and logical thinking that is coming into this house of creativity and expression. And so once again, there is this huge calling here to connect more, to express yourself more, right? This is also making an aspect over to the North Node, which is conjoined with the moon. And this is the last time that we're going to see the moon in a conjunction with the North Node in Cancer for a long time. So this is right before the North Node goes ahead and shifts back into Gemini. And so with this is a major moment here of really saying that this is the last chance. This is the last opportunity to take on this lesson here of connecting. Remember that with the North Node in Cancer, that the South Node is in Capricorn, right? In your first house of what's familiar to you. And so for many of you, this South Node has been sitting in your first house, where what you're familiar with, what you're comfortable with, what you already know is ultimately how to present yourself in a responsible, hardworking way, in a way that is focused on being motivated and getting things done. But this North Node in Cancer calling you back to this ultimate connection with others, right? This expression, this connection, this communication, this deeper, closer, more intimate, emotional connection to others in your life. And so calling you to take a look at relationships. And this is the last major moment, as the nodes are going to shift into your 6th house and your 12th house, where there is going to be a lot to say about moving away from what is familiar to you at the most deepest level of self, and moving more towards work and responsibilities. So this is the last moment to experience this ultimate connection before you come into a space of needing to start to focus on lessons surrounding the work that needs to be done in your life. It's a big moment here. Now this is making an aspect also over to Pluto and Jupiter conjoin, right? Once again in your first house. Again, Pluto is now in this retrograde, where this is this very deep review period of this transformation that needs to take place. This transformation of who you are and how you express yourself to others. So let's go ahead and take a look at what the cards have to say here. So starting off here, we have Temperance, And so, once again, this is really a moment of finding that peace, finding that balance, that harmony in your life. It's a major moment of, once again, not putting so much work in your life and coming into this space of balance, coming into this space of peace, of connection. It's a major lesson here for those of you with Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising is ultimately learning how to relax, learning how to come into this space of peace and harmony in your life. And it is a brand new beginning, the Ace of Swords here, where it is teaching you, again, how to communicate, how to connect, how to express yourself, how to come out of that space of detaching and focusing on work and responsibilities and coming into this space of true connection. Right? Nine of Swords in reverse. Coming out of that space of disconnecting and leaving behind this true connection with others. There's something big to say about the Nine of Swords that is ultimately letting go and leaving behind connections to go on this singular path on your own. But there is something big here for those of you with Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, that the journey is of connection to others. And there's also something big here to say about the Hermit, that this is a journey of transforming, of changing, of going through this experience of evolving yourself. And so there is a little bit of a balance here that is about connection, but also is about being alone and taking this time to reconnect to yourself, to go on this individual journey within. And for many of you, we're looking at a time of wanting to get things done. We're looking at a time of really wanting to work hard. Remember that Gemini energy sitting in your 6th house of work and responsibilities. But with Venus there, it is asking you to find love. It's asking you to find peace. It's asking you to find comfort. And so there is something big to say about this being a time of not putting all your energy into work, but allowing yourself to take the time to plant the seeds for what is it that you want to experience? What is it that you want to plan for? Remember that that North Node is going to shift back into Gemini, where that focus will be on work and responsibility. So this is not your time to do the work. This is your time to plan for the work, right? This is a time of planting seeds. This is a time of planning ahead. This is a time of acknowledging and knowing what it is that you want to put this effort and energy into. And so many of you with Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, very much getting ahead of yourselves here, trying to put all this effort and work in right now, where really this is your time to plan for the work that is going to be done in the future. High Priestess, this is a time, again, we talked about Neptune sitting in your 4th house. We talked about that moon that's going to be in, or is in, your 12th house at the moment, right? Where this is really a moment of trusting your intuition, of connecting to your ancestors for many of you, of having this quiet time to listen to your inner navigation, your inner authority, right? Neptune's going to be sticking around in your 3rd house for a very long time here, where you have to find the knowledge, you have to find the information within, you have to use your inner compass, your inner navigation here to understand and to know. And again, we talked about everything that is happening here in your house of expression and creativity and pleasure and fun, which is very much this sun energy, where many of you need to learn how to have fun, learn how to connect, learn how to express yourself, learn how to take this time to come up with creative ideas here, right? A lot of people rejecting this sun energy of fun, of expression, of creativity. A lot of energy here that is going into what is serious, going into responsibilities and work. But there is a strong need here of coming back to this space of true connection, true expression of self. We have Gemini here. So again, we talked about how Gemini is sitting in that sixth house, where a lot of your mental energy, for those of you with Capricorn rising especially, a lot of your mental energy is going into working and getting responsibilities done. But there is something big to say here, that Gemini is ultimately meant to communicate, meant to connect, right? There's something big about Gemini that is soulmate energy, of true connection, of true communication. And so, how can we come out of this space here of just wanting to work and work and work, and really coming into this space of finding true connection? Remember, Cancer is your seventh house, right? That other half of you. And so, in partnerships and true connection, and truly dealing with others, that it is truly meant for you to have this deeper connection. And so, really coming into the space of communicating, of connecting, of having fun, of really learning to enjoy yourself, and really learning to connect to that fifth house energy, once again, that inner child. And not just work, 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 with Aries here in reverse. Again, many of you are putting a lot of your energy and your effort into work and responsibility, right? Aries here wanting to take action, wanting to get things done. We have air in reverse. And so again, there is this lack of connection. There's this lack of finding the information, finding the true connection, finding the true freedom, right? Freedom is very big here for many of you with Capricorn rising. That ultimately, with Sag back in your 12th house, at a deep subconscious level, you are seeking freedom. And this freedom, even though we are in this space of lockdown, this freedom comes from, again, that fifth house of expressing yourself, of having this true connection, of finding that joy and that creativity in your life. And again, a lot of transformation that is taking place at a deep level about who are you and how are you presenting yourself to others, right? We talked about Pluto sitting in your first house, where there's a lot of transformation, there's a lot of change that is taking place here in terms of who you are, how you're presenting yourself, how you're coming across to others. And so a lot of major shifts and transformations that need to take place here. Right? And And if we take a look here, we have all of these cards here with this very strong fiery energy here, right? If we look at this, very fiery colors here, all of these cards in reverse, where there is something major to say here about ultimately rejecting that fire that you have within you, right? Many of you rejecting this fun, this joy, this excitement, this connection in life. And there is this ultimate focus on responsibilities and on getting work and tasks done in your life. But with the sun here in reverse, you're rejecting this inner child within you. You're rejecting this joy, this sense of fun, this sense of creativity. Remember that that fifth house is going to have a lot of activity going on there, right? And solar eclipse revolution. So rejecting this major solar eclipse experience that you can have here of starting fresh. Remember we saw that Ace of Swords energy earlier, where this is ultimately an opportunity to start fresh, right? And we do have that new moon that takes place in your fifth house as well, right? And your fifth house is already at place where we're seeing this call for you to do something new, to do something different, to implement this change in your life here with Uranus. And so there is something big to say here where you're rejecting this opportunity to start something fresh, to start something new here. Right? So major changes here that need to take place. Right? And ultimately rejecting who you are and how you can express that to others. There's a big theme here of expressing yourself, of putting yourself out there, of finding this true connection with others. And so coming into that space is very important here. And remember that Aries, we have Aries in reverse here, but Aries is your fourth house of home and family, of emotional connection, right? And so there is this strong desire here to connect at a deeper level once again, where many of you are rejecting this. Many of you are in this space of, what can I do to feel this time? What are the responsibilities I can take care of at this time right now, right? Many of you feeling like you have too much time on your hands at this moment, but this is really a big time of using this to make a deeper connection, not only with yourself, but with others. And again, many of you are not in this space, fifth house, where we talked a lot about that fifth house of creativity, of expression, of romance, of children, of pleasure, of fun, right? Where many of you need to start being more expressive, needing to start adding some joy and some fun into your life, right? Especially as we are talking about Capricorn, which is a sign that is directly connected to depression and loneliness, right? As Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, right? There's this disconnect. Capricorn has this ability to detach and disconnect. And so there is something big to say here about learning how to connect, right? That blind spot, that shadow side is Cancer in your seventh house. So finding that deeper connection, finding that true connection in your life. And we do have the Four of Swords here, where once again, you must find that true connection, right? Four of Spades here. Very similar to the Four of Swords energy, where you have to come into this meditative space where you are connected to yourself, but also something big to say about connecting to others too, especially to home and family, right? 4, which is the number that is the very year that we're in, right? Which is why we're starting off here with this North Node in Cancer, which will shift to North Node in Gemini, which also, Gemini deals with your familiar surroundings. It deals with short distance travel. It deals with the people that you connect to on a daily basis. And so, again, there's this huge calling to connect to what is right in front of you, to what is true family, to what is your true home, to what is familiar. There is this calling to come back to what is comfortable, to come back to deeper connection, and away from this work hard and focus on responsibility and focusing on getting to the top, right? This is a big time where you can use your free time, for those of you who are on lockdown, to connect back with yourself, to connect back to family, to connect to the people in your life that matter, and to come away from this space of working hard and dealing with responsibilities. So that was your April 2020 horoscope for Capricorn Sun, Moon, or Rising. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment. If you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell. Feel free to join the group Astro Metaphysical Love and Light to share your positivity, your spiritual wisdom, psychic messages, motivational advice, any kind of positivity that you'd like to share with the community. Go ahead and feel free to join the group. Thanks so much for watching once again. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.